Welcome everyone to Property Insight Straight Talk. Tonight, we are very honored to have two special guests, two VIP guests to share with us some of the insights for property investment. Of course, firstly, our surveyor, Vicky Howe, the founder for Propedia Consultancy. Welcome, Vicky.
Hi.
And of course, the second guest will be Alan Poon, the author for 3 books and also the founder of Superior Wealth. Alan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
All right. First off, I just want to get some of the insights or some of the perspective from you all. I just read this article from a news agency saying that IMF is expecting a global recession for everyone, for every country. And how will this economic landscape change after this?
Well, I think it's definitely an observation that everyone at home is watching right now. In fact, I think recession, it really depends on each different country. From Malaysia perspective, I think we are definitely hitting rock bottom. I wouldn't say recession is now, but I would say in the next few months, depending on how the government policies are, like recently the new packages that was announced, how well it can actually sustain the economy landscape. I definitely, we are heading downwards the valley in that context. And I think the voices is definitely louder on the SME side, as we know that the pre-18 packages by the government, it's to basically address the rice bowl issue of most of the majority, the masses first. So looking at it, I think we will still have a buffer of maybe the next 2 months to see how SMEs, companies react to the situation. Of course, certain sectors already have been badly hit since the start of the year, thanks to this COVID-19, like the aviation, tourism industry. So you see a lot of hotels are now turning into quarantine centers, just to substantiate some of their incomes, other than that, a lot of our subsectors in real estate are definitely affected, like retails, shopping malls, and whatnot.
Thanks, Alan. Vicky, what is your thought on this? How will our economic landscape change? And for this time around, how will it be different than the rest of the recessions?
I take it positively because about this recession things is not today matter already. It's quite a few years that we have been in on the low side of the economy already. So I would say that all this while we are actually moving towards the economic L curve. So each economy, they has got a timeline whereby when is the maturity of the recession and then it will rebound back. So at this point in time, we know that the good news is that we know that we're at the rock bottom, and whereby the next things that's going to happen is to rebound back. Now this rebounds back, when is this period is going to happen, is all depending on after this MCO and after all this entire COVID virus thing, how our country react to it and how this SME produce and sustain all this economy back. So of course, looking at this, it is actually a positive side whereby most of the time when it's recession, we do not know when is the rock bottom. And now we know that at this point in time is the worst of the worst case scenario already. So the next thing we know that it will come up, and this will happen in like 6 months to 12 months period. And this 6 months to 12 months period is really crucial in the sense that how all these SME bosses take charge and lead the companies, and also how our country leaders lead the country and the economy as well.
Yeah.
And of course, looking at current scenario, we can see that there are a lot of factors being affected, a sector being affected. But not entirely. I look at some of the sectors like, internet businesses, they are doing pretty well. Some of the pharmaceutical companies and medical companies, they are doing extremely well as well. Groceries, all these companies are doing very well. So it's just a handful of other sector because of MCO, they can't continues to work and can't continues to generate income. These
Yeah.
are the sectors that have been affected. But other than that, I see it as a temporary pause to the economy.
Maybe I will bring back the focus to property market. Of course, from this economic repercussion, they will have a domino effect on our property market as well. So maybe you guys can help me to share how will it impact our property market, and what will be the best way for us to mitigate the impact.
Okay, I think again we have to look at the macro perspective to the micro perspective. Definitely today we are not just looking at economic crisis, we are looking at also the health crisis. And of course, earlier we had this political change of landscape in the country, where now a lot of policies, in fact, all the stimulus package was are to be tabled in the first parliament sitting. So how would all these things impact the property sector? I think it all subject to whether we are looking at the angle of the buyer sentiment or the so-called tenant, or as well as even stakeholders like professionals, like Vicky is a valuer, and also all these auctioneers or even real estate agents.
Yes.
I agree with Ricky to say that certain subsectors are behaving much better in terms of property. Example, prior to this MCO locking down, as I was doing advisory work for some clients, we also saw that actually the retail sector is pretty much quite low already. It's a bit dead. But of course, I think going forward, there will be still this demand in terms of space utilization for retail grocery. I think grocery is an essential service. But if you talk about malls, non-essential, I think a lot of malls or REITs, in terms of REITs, they will have to look into how to basically utilize the space better.
Yes.
Going forward, perhaps some hotels which are affected, hopefully are not closing down. Some of the space can be turned into what the last few years we have been talking about in the real estate, where co-living, people can talk about communal living, things like that. So there are opportunities. Not everything is bad. But of course, before all these things come up, there will be certain percentage of the market that will go into distress mode, so to speak. And looking at the current announcement, where there is a moratorium of 6 months deferment for the principal for most of the loans, personal loan and housing loan and car loan. Property-wise, I think there won't be much of distressed property yet. But however, 6 months later, there could be a surge if individuals or even corporate entities are not able to sustain their, what they call this, cash flow.
Okay.
So we may have like a muted 6 months lah. Everybody are at home. Employers, of course, they can't sleep. But first, space utilization in terms of property, I think wellness definitely, as I wrote in some of the articles recently, wellness real estate definitely will be something to watch out in the future. As well as also perhaps what you call these medical related properties lah.
Okay, I think there will be a revolution in space utilization. What happened is that for many years, our retail space, like what Alan said, it has been a very low supply, a low demand in retail space. Actually, out of all the properties that are being affected, I think this round retail will be badly affected due to our consumer behavior right now. Now, we know that .com's era has come out in 1990s. And during this 1990s, everyone's habit of changing to online shopping has started. And in country much more advanced like Taiwan, UK, or US, they already start using online shopping rather than physically going there. But on the other hand, on Malaysia part, Malaysia has got a very they want to touch the item, they want to feel the item, they want to have the habit of going out, and also shopping mall has become a family gathering space, and also a recreational place for all the family together. So shopping mall has been in use for the past few years, but the demand for shopping mall has reduced tremendously over the period of time. But this round, it will change the habit of Malaysian shopping, because for this 1 whole month of MCO, you will be learn how to shop online. You will kick off your bad habit of wanting to touch the item, wanting to see the item before you buy, because you really need the items to ship it over to you. So when this 1 month, everyone is used to shop online. In other words, shopping mall will be, their business will be jeopardized by all these habits, shopping habits. I would say that in the future, a lot of shopping mall that are not not doing very well. It is actually a time that they will go into trouble of renting out their spaces.
Yeah.
On top of that, I also be seeing that a lot of warehouses will be needed rather than shopping mall. So because these people, they will still need to shop online, there are still demand in terms of shoppings and all that, but they will shop online. So where is this places of storing the products?
Yes.
So they will need warehouses. I will say that a lot of warehouses will be highly in demand. Shops may be first floor or second floor or even third, fourth floor will turn into warehouses. All those offices that cannot rent out can be converted into warehouses as well. So I see that it's a trend of changing the way people use the space right now.
Vicky, what is the effect, do you think, for this 6 months moratorium?
For this 6 months moratorium, is actually very good, because after this MCO, we need some time to recover from our businesses. For 1 month, you didn't work from 9 to 6. You want to suddenly increase the productivity in the company, or the momentum is really hard to do so. So you need about 3 months to 6 months to gain back the trust from your customer and gain back your momentum. So it is very good that these things last for 6 months. But having said that, some of this property that is already going up for auction before this MCO still will proceed as usual. So in other words, when this MCO starts, because there are so many auction that is supposed to be auctioned in the auction room right now, they have been put on hold for 1 whole month. So in other words, right after this MCO, there will be plenty of units will be up for auction, not because of this, during this MCO, they have no business or they are having trouble with their cash flow. It's because that all these postponed cases will be brought forward after the MCO period. Okay, so we will see a sudden surge in auction cases, and right after that, we will see a substantial amount lesser auction cases, because those people who having cash trouble already, the government give them additional 6 months of moratorium deferment payment, so they got plenty of time to generate cash. I think this is a good time for them, a second opportunity for them to gain back their property.
And talking about distress mode, just now Alan was mentioning, what do you think of auction right now, Alan?
Yeah, auction to me, ever since like 6 years ago when I do my first workshop in the market, I always believe and I always put a positive connotation in the market, especially to the media, with friends like you, Dr. KK, who actually say, to remove the so-called buyers beware. Too many buyers beware sometimes put a lot of fear into people's, especially investors who do not know much about auction. Auction to me is like a very natural progression of things. There will be always people who make money during bad times or good times. There will be people who are distressed, whether it's good time or bad time. It's only maybe it is louder when it comes to bad times, like a crisis like what we are having, not just Malaysia, all over the world, where people are facing some credit crunch. So in fact, I always mention that auction is not immediate result. There are many ways. In fact, because at the end of the day, if you are not an investor, you are staying in your own house, the last thing you want to let go is your own roof. You need a roof above your head to stay. So most people will try to basically save the house as the last asset to liquidate, unless of course they really have to, after finance it and whatever not, and they cannot still use the money to survive their day-to-day business or whatever cash flow, then perhaps the house will go for auction. But of course, that's another story altogether, because the process will take some time.
Yes.
All in all, if you ask me generally, I would say auction properties is something that an investor or property investor should have some of the so-called asset class, like it's part of their gameplay.
Portfolio.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, Vicky, what's your take on auction? And of course, the other thing is, what would be the main advantage of auction property among all the asset class?
Auction, like what Alan Poon said, at any point in time in the economy, you will still find auction property no matter what. It is not the economy that calls people's property into auction, but it's actually the financial management of that person who owns the property. So rather than, people who blame it on the economic crisis, it's actually their financial management. Beside that, talking about auction property, right now you will see that there will be those that upcoming cases, it will be lesser. But auction is always good for you to make money in terms of if you know how to take the skills of doing auction property. And of course, auction is a place whereby those people who wants to get good deal, but they are very fear of going inside the auction for the reason that what if I buy overpriced property? I think auction all these years has been overly rated by those typical unit that they know. So for example, this is a very well-known project. If there's 1 or 2 units coming up for auction, you will be seeing that 50, 60 people rush to this typical unit.
Yeah.
And ended up these people were not able to buy it below market value.
Mhm.
Whereas there are so many other properties that are good properties that are up for auction that no one actually discovered. These are the properties that you can actually get way below the market value.
Which means in terms of the area or expectation needs to be set differently lah. Because I just share my experience. I've been to 3 auctions before. All the 3 doesn't give me very good result. In fact, very poor result lah. Like what you just shared, Vicky. One of it is a shop lot in I still remember in Madam Pasar. So the moment we went in, there are easily 60 bidders inside crammed inside a very small. I still remember the one in Shah Alam. This is it called Magistrate? The auction hall, the
Magistrate.
Mahkamah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a very small room, 60 over bidders. So now the next question I ask is, how can we actually find opportunity in auction? Like what just you mentioned earlier on, Vicky, we have to focus on area that are not considered hot properties or hot area, hotspots. Yes. Besides that, any other insights that you all can share with us?
I think first of all, people have to get the hotspot out of their mind, because many people thought that the hotspot is Bangsala, Klang Lama, Bukit Jalil, all this kind of things. Yes, this is hotspot, but because it's so hot that everybody went and jerk up the price, and even if you go there inside the auction room, and you will most probably get beyond above market value property. So those are the kind of properties that I avoid. I don't just look into the location, the hotspot, where else I look into the pricing, whereby it is really below market value. So how low where I go into is somewhere around below 40% or 30% market value, then only I proceed with my auction. Otherwise, you go inside, you don't even get a chance to put up your hand the next party.
Yeah, wasting time.
Yeah, wasting time.
Yeah.
And wasting your cost of buying your bank draft.
Yes.
So perhaps I can add on to what KK has just said lah. I believe there are 2-pronged strategy to how to get all these good deals lah. Number one is to the category of people who already know the game plan in terms of auction. They are not first time. So perhaps we can't remove the dogma of a hotspot, because at the end of the day, everybody is basing on location. Until and unless the market is educated in such a way that buying property is not about location, I think then people won't just rush to any hotspot. And I agree with it, because I usually don't go to hotspot unless I've talked about it so much and I get me and my investor friend buy it until become a hotspot. But ultimately, to find something good, I think at the end of the day we need to talk about the first group of people. You need to get yourself educated first, and I think Vicky will agree with me that education is key and crucial and pertinent to finding auction property. Just like any other properties out there, you need to know your numbers right. You need to know, in fact, the property type or that you are keen, and in fact, the area that you want to. But most importantly is the objective why you want to get property. It's not just because it's 30-40% below market, although that's definitely a plus point. But at the end of the day, is why do you want to go into auction property? Because any type of asset class, whether it's primary market, secondary market, or even auction, there is a pro and cons to it, I would say.
So the next question is, when is the best time for us to go into auction property?
Anytime.
Anytime is the best time.
Actually, even if the market is good, you will still face a lot of people inside the auction room. Even the market is bad, it's even worse because you think that the market do not have money, but they are actually still have a lot of people who keep their bullet all this while waiting for this moment to come. So at any time, if you want to wait until the market is the best time to buy, you will be left behind way left behind, because the reason why is that you will never know when is the lowest low. So if you buy it right now, at least you know that, like what I said earlier, we are in the worst scenario already, the rock bottom already. So if you buy it right now, at least you know that even if it goes a bit lower, you will not lose out your money.
Best time always is the answer is always yesterday, right? But too bad we can't rewind. So I think always it's still the objective and the location or the type of property that you wanted. Because if you're familiar, example, I'm familiar with Old Klang Road. If I am so into it, I would know that, how is the price changes over the years, what are the offerings from developers project or even sub-sale that is there. And the best time to buy auction property is in fact before it goes to auction. For that's why if you can negotiate something below market, beyond auction price, it's even better. So I always compare auction properties with sale market in a nearby area that I targeted. So that would make sense. At least you have a comparison to go in rather than just go in based on euphoria, hype, especially if you're dealing with, example, agent auctioneer who tell you that this is a good deal. So it's still back to what you need and how much you need it. You also don't want to over leverage, because if you over leverage, like some of the people who over leverage in the last few years, I think now they will be in this situation whereby maybe they have to let go some of these properties, because auction can be voluntary as well. Open market auction, it doesn't have to be distress or foreclosure by the banks.
Private
I want to fall into that category as well.
Yeah, private auction. So what kind of mistakes can we avoid if we were to go into auction property?
Mistakes, I guess generally speaking, a lot of people are looking at the price point, all right, and they feel that this is something good, so they do a lot of work prior to the auction. And like you said, when they go to the auction room, then they got a shock of their life.
No, sometimes ego also, wow,
Yeah.
my next guy keep raising up his hand. I have to outbid him.
Then you look at your own, how much bullet do I have compared to others, you see. So I think one of the biggest mistake is that a lot of people are looking into themselves rather than looking to the market. So I always tell people that if you haven't been to an auction, you have to go and have a look and have a feel at it first. All right, at least you know what is there, and also the avenue for auction, the type of auction that is available. You don't have to just go for the public auction that is held usually on weekdays, or some of them on weekends. Perhaps you can go to high court auction as well, which is usually held in the working hours. All right, and of course now we have the e-bidding. So all these some of the things that people should look at, and of course don't overbid. The biggest mistake is that people overbid. All right, on paper, yes, it doesn't look good, provided you have get the financing. If you cannot get the financing because you overbid, then that's gone case. But then again, if some people overbid, I also say that take it as a lesson, because I think in investment there's always some lessons to be paid. You either pay to the market by losing money out there, or you pay to some seminars or whatever, which is, you call it investment into knowledge. So either way, I think you still have to make sure that you learn up the lessons well. And I'm happy that the 6-month moratorium is there for people who may want to look into auction property, to really read some books, go into some seminars. I'm doing a few webinars so that you can actually learn up these 6 months. And when, like what Vicky say, the bottleneck is that now some of the cases that is being hold up. So maybe it's time also to do some market survey now, and by the next 6 months time later on, perhaps there will be some search of cases soon. So that is also another time factor for you to go in.
I think first of all, it's emotion. When people go inside the auction room, they just forgotten about what is their price, maximum price they should get. because of sometimes is the emotion that we want to win the properties that actually gets us going on putting our hand up. So I have come across, there was once the property only started, reserve price started from 6 million, and it bid up to 27 million. Okay, in
Wow.
between there was my hand lah, but after that I let go of my hand lah.
Wow.
27 million is way above market value already. But they actually very happy because they won the property. So that was one mistake that people always do. The second is people don't do due diligence before they buy the property. And they make on an assumption that I know this property well, I know this area so well, I don't need to do any of the research. So the first number one research that they don't do is the title search. Even they do the title search, they still don't understand what is stipulated inside the title. How to lift up the caveat, all this kind of thing they have no idea of. Especially all these newbies who buy auction property, they end up buying all this kind of property. And of course, because auction property is not like a sub-sale whereby you can actually go inside and view the property. Auction property is come where as is basis. So you whatever you bought with it. If there's a dead body, you bought the property with the dead body as well. If there's free fridge, you bought it with the free fridge as well.
Okay.
So a lot of people did not go and see the structure, even do some research on the construction before they buy the property. So it's actually quite dangerous for doing that. Of course, not everybody have got construction background.
Yeah.
So you need to do due diligence on this property before you buy it. I have a friend who bought the property, and then turns out that when she went inside and looked at the property with me, the whole roof collapsed down right in front of her. Yeah.
Oh, right in front. Luckily, she's safe.
Invested with her mic.
Oh, okay.
Many stories to hear like in auction,
Yes.
Besides that, maybe I want to touch a little bit on this MCO. Okay, we all know that the last day of MCO should be on the 14th of April. So give you all two scenarios. Let's say MCO will be lifted on the 14th of April. What will happen to our economy? Okay, if MCO were to be extended, say maybe another 3 to 4 weeks, what will it happen to our economy as well as our property market?
I think the second, later one will happen most likely. Looks like our MCO might extend. The reason being is because every single day we still have 3 digit of infected.
Yes.
Yeah, 3 digit. So until the day that we have double digit or lesser.
Or single digit.
Or single digit, that's when our government will let us roam around again. So if, let's say for example, if our really on the 14th, on the 15th, we can actually leave our house, I think that's it actually would not have that much of difference. It only depends on during these 2 weeks. After that, if extend, what is the motivation people have? Either you are lost, or either you do not have inspiration to go on, or you already think that it's already doomed already. There are a lot of people start putting negative posting on Facebook on how they lose money, and this is really unhealthy. If a lot of people are infected with this kind of depression, that means after this, whatever MCO is whatever date that MCO lifted,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But what is the mindset that people have after they leave the house?
I think to answer this question is like, looking into the crystal ball, but to make it more, I think, objective is at the end of the day, what investors should do is to expect the worst to come. And looking at global trends, the epidemiological curve of the so-called virus is definitely, it takes more than 2 months. So having said that, I think the best time is now. So for whatever reason that anyone is looking to do business, or in terms of, let's say, for example, you're a landlord, you have to have some plans right up your sleeves right now already to handle the upcoming credit crunch, I would say. For example, even auction, even if there is, I'm not sure whether in the court, high court auction it is allowed or not, because looking at the Director General's advice to say, social distance, no mass gathering. Perhaps everybody have to be staying 1 meter apart before you raise up your hand and stuff like that.
Maximum
but then again,
10% is allowed in the room.
only, So looking at it, it could be an advantage because this is the time where people don't want to go out from the house. So perhaps always think contrarian, like what I always do. If it's a kind of auction where you have to attend and you have to look for some property or viewing, I think this is also a good time, provided both parties willing to take the risk to go out, and overall, I think the market is they still have to run. Certain properties, example, which are already unoccupied. Example, co-working spaces. Perhaps that is also something that people should look at right now in the next 2 months. With this MCO lifted, perhaps they could remodel or re-strategize their business, knowing that if they are going to have this rental expenses, perhaps they want to reduce the rental expenses, so go into some co-working spaces, or even share some of these expenses with their similar competitors, in that context. So I think now we will see a convergence of business and real estate together, coupled with the digital transformation that is happening with all the online things needed. In fact, I've seen in the last 2 weeks, there's so many real estate stakeholders are using online to perform businesses nowadays. So really surprising, because a lot of people thought brick and mortar, you need to go out there, feel it, touch it. But everybody, besides education, they are doing online meetings to get things done. I think this is the new norm. This is the new norm.
Yeah, talking about e-bidding, for right now, e-bidding is only meant for non-LACA case, is it? Which means strata title cases. How
without issued title?
Without issued title. How about those that have issued title? Can they still, like from the court cases? Can we still do e-bidding? Are we enabled already for this digital transformation?
At this moment, no, because it is under the regulations that all this LACA property can be on land office or any other places, but non-LACA has to be in the high court still.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we still need to have that fear of it might be a mass gathering, for what for some hot properties, it could be hundreds of people bidding. So that's the risk.
But LACA property does not mean that they are old and low cost property. Some of the LACA property could be newly built, but they haven't had issued strata title yet.
Understand.
So those are also under LACA property. So in other words, if there are new projects that completed, but this
no title,
within 3 or 4 years they cannot issue the title yet. So these are still under LACA property.
Yeah, I do look forward to the adoption of e-bidding actually, despite we have some glitches and some delays, because I think when you have some challenge or crisis like this, is the best way to push forward some of this transformation. Imagine if we are doing all this online e-bidding, it saves a lot of time, and at least we know that even if we lose the bid, we don't have to go out, safer, and there's so much of time wasted just to attend. Sometimes when we go for auction, even not personally, we get our representative to go. So I think these are some of the things that we look forward to the positive change in the landscape of auction property.
Yeah.
I like the physical auction. I mean, it is fun to put up the hand. That is the urge to win the property. But for online e-bidding wise, I feel that the thing is like that. The emotion is not there. Maybe just
Agree. Unless they do something like a Zoom kind of bidding, where you can see each other putting up the hand.
Everybody must put on a video.
Yes. And the other thing is, when we talk about auction property, we have this perception. Okay, first thing, too many syndication is running the show. Second, of course, what if I won the bid, and I think I will only be given 90 days, is it, for the fulfillment to get my loan approved and to disperse out the loan? Is that right? Is it 90 days?
90 to 120 days.
90 to 120 days. So and the third thing is some banks, because this one I'm not too sure, some banks, they might not be as receptive to give out loans or to a certain margin for auction property. I don't know whether that is true or not. Maybe you guys can share some insights on these scenarios.
So in terms of auction property, most of the auction property are just like sub-sale. It is
Mhm.
the same case, but only certain cases, like for example, they are LACA cases, but they already exceeded more than 10 years without individual title or strata title. That are the cases whereby bank will refuse to issue you loan. So most
Mhm.
of the time, this kind of cases, they will not be very high price, maybe 30,000, 40,000 kind of low cost property,
Mhm.
usually lah. You
Yeah.
know, this kind of property, the property that you have to prepare cash to buy.
And some of the auction property also they might fall under caveat. So what should be the best way for us to buy auction property? Does it mean that we have to, let's say this is a 100,000 worth for auction property, we have to at least stand by 100,000 cash in case these things were to happen and things like that? What is your advice on that?
So usually, before I go for auction, I will run a title search first, depending on whether there's a caveat or not. If there's a caveat, I will see who put on the caveat. If this person is not related with the other party, okay, that party, if let's say this person have not owned any money for the person who put the caveat on this title, so there is a chances that we can, as a new owner, we can sue them. But this will take about a year to complete. So, and the amount of money to throw in to do this matter is not cheap. So rather than that, we will try to avoid this kind of cases, try to avoid all this kind of caveat, private caveat, beside bank caveat. So I will try to avoid all this. So if I have avoid all this kind of cases, so my risk have lowered down already. Now then, after that, I will actually go to the bank first to get a pre-approved loan first. So see the bank will, how much the bank will able to loan me before I go to the auction. So after upon getting the auction, you know, if I win the auction already, I will straight away run to the bank and get the approval letter.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, to add on, I
Yes.
perhaps I always believe is property is a team sport lah. You know, as much as sometimes we are very discreet with our personal wealth and we want to do things on our own. That's why, but we cannot run away from the fact that some people want to buy auction property alone, which is quite dangerous. That's why there's so many buyers beware out there. Aside from getting pre-approved loan, I think the person who wants to buy auction needs to actually get a proper lawyer, a lawyer who knows and have track record in actually handling the auction cases, because paperwork for auction cases are different, and they need to be having good relationship also with the banks. I experienced in the early days auction where some lawyers, they say they can do because they need businesses, but then again when they cannot do, this is where the trouble begins. So then everybody trying to push each other. So perhaps before we start, there's this document called proclamation of sale, whether non-laka or laka, where it's good to run through that together. Example, if you're with your relationship banker, to get some pre-approved loan, as well as also the lawyer. So at least you know what to do next, because as mentioned earlier, it's not KK, the time is very crucial. 90 to 120 days is not a lot if you minus all the weekends, and especially if there's public holidays and whatnot. So that is something crucial that people should look at. Otherwise, you know, you may win the bid, but you may have to prepare extra
Lose the
cash.
video.
Yeah, you lose it. Otherwise.
So, okay, what will be your property investment strategy right now?
Strategy right now
Yeah.
is to shop for property.
Okay. What kind of
Okay, right
checklist
now,
will you put yourself on?
there are much more other ways to buy property besides buying auction property. Of course, auction is the fundamental place whereby you can actually find a lot of good deals. But before auction, we have to find all these deals and filter it, and then we can actually do some creative ways to buy property with that. So, for example, I have few ways which I actually teach all this method in my classes. So one of it is like lease option. We can use them as lease option, because at the end of the day, how much loan can you take? You can't get a lot of loan. At the end of the day, even you do compression loan now, what pressure loan now, there is a limit of number of property you can buy. So at the end of the day, you have to use some creative method to buy your property. So I intend to look into this kind of option. There will be more in the market in the next few weeks. So I need to start filtering out all these owners and start talking to them.
For me, I think the so-called general advice we have to put aside right now for myself even, because I'm looking at the situation right now. Yes, it's a buyer's market. The next short to medium term, there will be a lot of good deals. So for people who are ready with cash, yes, they can buy. However, buying is only 50% of the question. And I always put it in my book that to say that rental is the real thing that sustain your property. You can buy many now, but if you cannot get a tenant who can pay you, they lost their job. So why bother to accumulate a mass of properties that will only actually make your financials go down. So there's a lot of headache right now. Even landlords are giving discount. So as much as there's a good deals, I would say that the bear is arrived. The long haul is that the duration for the bull market is still on the up. In the short term, I would basically look at the next 3 months just to do a lot of research and work. Perhaps buying may start after 3 months to 6 months time, just to lock in certain properties. Example, for own usage, if I were to expand on my office, then I would want to get into a bigger space, because now I can get it and use it. I don't have to worry that cannot find any landlord or tenant. If I were to use it as investment purposes, then I would need to know what is the market in terms of the industry or sector where business may thrive, where perhaps that could fulfill certain cash flow. Like, as I earlier mentioned, some cash flow business like groceries, malls, retail basis, where there are people need essentials, So perhaps these are some of the subsectors that we could invest in, and I'm definitely looking at it. Or even perhaps some commercial building where we can turn it into some wellness centers, where people nowadays, after COVID-19, everybody is very well aware of being healthy rather than having $1 million in the bank account. So I think you have to go back to a need-based society to understand the supply and demand of the market before we decide where to put our money to reap from the profits of real estate.
Yeah. Lastly,
Just to add on to whatever.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Whatever Alan Poon have just mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, Alan actually mentioned something very important, which is if you buy a lot of property, then at the end of the day, there's nobody is going to rent it. There will be an issue, which I agree. A lot of problem like this happens, but I foresee that right now the market, if there will be a lot of auction coming up, there will be a lot of tenants out in the market as well. If they lose their home, they won't be a homeowner, and they will become a tenant. So in this situation, where you buy is very important as well. If you buy in an oversaturated area, like for example Medini kind of places, you wouldn't be able to rent it out at all. But other than that, you actually can able to rent it out. You are one of the rare species already. Become a landowner or homeowner, you are the rare species already, because there will be more people losing their home and they need to rent.
So it works both ways, in a way.
Yes, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, lastly, of course, to all our audience tonight, most of them staying tuned because they want to get some strategy. For those that have extra cash, of course, what should be their strategy like if they want to invest in properties?
I've actually indicated some of the subsectors that people with some extra cash flow can go in, because again, property serves two purposes. It also helps for those who, as Vicky mentioned, doesn't have a roof above their head. So it's something noble that if you can buy and then you can rent it out. But ultimately, I think it's to always safeguard our own turf first. As we said, charity begins at home. So if you are having some extra money and you want to expand your business, you want to relocate, now is the best time to go into. Again, look into some places where economic activities are always there. So depending on the industry type, as I mentioned just now, if it's, example, going to be some essential businesses, then perhaps you can buy some shop lots nearby housing area estates and whatnot. So these are some of the things. And if you were looking into some e-commerce businesses, of course, warehouse is also a good place to invest in, because warehouse doesn't have to be just putting stuff There are many businesses now that, example, F&B, the last few years has been changing from farm to the restaurant, directly fresh produce. So these are some of the areas. I guess it's all about understanding the business and economic landscape to really know where to put the money, because we may think on our side as a landlord that the yield could be good, but eventually, who are the users of the property type that we are looking into lah? So I believe there's always a sector that that can perform lah. But if you ask me, standalone grade A offices, I think that's a no-no for now. So perhaps we can invest into maybe even a startup or co-working space, communal living. These are some of the areas that people can look into to invest. At least you can even make some business out of it besides collecting some rental, tied up with some operators who can actually do that. That's what I look at in the last few years when it comes to hotel business. But of course now hotel is definitely affected lah.
Right now, I think whatever cash that you have to separate into two. One is for your own living reserve. The other one is for your investment. I know that there are a lot of people who do not separate these two matters because they think that I have 200,000, I should invest entire 200,000. That is very wrong, because during this period of time, you don't know how this COVID thing will last. Even it lasts for another 2 to 3 months, we have another after effect for 3 to 6 months. So we need to have some substantial amount of reserve in hand. And after that, this amount of cash that you want to invest, you need to know a strategy whereby how it will multiply by itself, rather than, if you have 200,000 or invest all this 200,000 put into one property. So you need to know how you can actually use the least possible capital to buy one property, and so that any additional amount of money is for the reserve for that property as well. Besides buying that property, you also have to think of the reserve for the property. For example, you have management to take care of.
Yes.
You have the cukai pintu assessment, all this.
Assessment, yeah.
So you need to focus on not just throw the money thinking that buying the property, that's all. This is a buyer's market. Everywhere you can get a deal. But then, of course, you have to craft up a structure whereby how you're going to spend this money. And on top of that, I actually think that now buying properties, don't buy too many at the same time as well, because you don't know what's going to happen as well. You buy 2 or 3 properties is fine, but don't buy like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've seen before people buy a lot of property at the same time. And on top of that, if possible, buy places that is not too hot spot, because there are other places like Port Klang is coming up. Government has invested a lot of money in Port Klang. If you are looking at warehouses, that could be a very good place. Now, traditional method of investing into property could be one of the best method. Although it will take a long time, but it will be actually much more sustainable.
Yeah, understand. Thanks for your insightful sharing today. And I think for all our viewers out there for tonight, I'm sure you all have benefited a lot. And like what both of our panelists is sharing, don't rush into making decision, and always set out 2 funds. One is for investment fund, the other one is for living fund. Do not get overexcited with what will unveil in months to come. Stay grounded, really analyze your deal, do the enough due diligence before you embark on any of the investment decision making. With that, again, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Vicky, for your time and your sharing.
Thank you for inviting.
And wish you all the best. Stay safe and stay at home. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.